Australian news media is awash with misinformation about residential real estate, providing major risk for consumers who believe what they're seeing or hearing. And here's the deadliest combination most likely to result in misinformation. A journalist who knows little about property rewriting a press release from an economist who knows even less. Now, that formula for shallow propaganda and kindergarten analysis accounts for over 90% of what is published in mainstream media about residential real estate. Part of the problem is it has become fashionable for major banks and research organisations to employ kids with good teeth and sparkling personalities and give them titles like senior economist. Knowledge, talent and experience are all optional. So we have 20-somethings with impressive titles working for major organisations which give them access to all the statistical data they could ever need, but desperately bereft of any ability to interpret it and provide assistance to Australian consumers with mature analysis. One of the factors they have in common is a belief that the main element driving real estate markets, indeed the only element, is interest rates. Now, if you weren't alive in the 1980s, when you were still in daycare in the early years of this century, you'll probably be unaware of those momentous periods when interest rates were incredibly high and property prices kept on rising. But you are old enough to know that property prices rose in 2023 when interest rates were regularly increasing, and again in 2024 when interest rates were stubbornly high, but only if you had your eyes open. But as Winston Churchill famously said, sometimes people stumble over the truth but manage to pick themselves up and hurry away unaffected. Economists, for reasons no one can explain to me, cling to the childlike belief that rising interest rates mean property prices will fall and declining interest rates mean real estate will boom everywhere, despite all the evidence to the contrary. So we have economists lining up to snag some free publicity by forecasting a property boom for no reason other than the recent two small decreases in interest rates. The research house Domain, which is barely visible these days because it's fallen so far behind PropTrack and Cotality in providing real estate data, burst into print recently with predictable nonsense about the recent interest rate reductions creating big up cycles in real estate markets. However, gullible media lapped it up with one headline declaring pedal to the metal for house prices as rates fall. The article that followed stated that interest rate cuts would put a rocket under property prices, and Sydney would lead the charge according to Domain, supercharged by interest rate cuts and some assistance for first home buyers. Can you imagine first home buyers leading a boom in a city where the median house price is around 1.5 million and the median unit price is $820,000? According to Domain's chattering economists, the upcoming buying frenzy would push Sydney's median house price to 1.8 million because interest rates are now 0.5% lower than before. And that's what passes for real estate analysis down at Domain. Nothing else is in play, not the local economy, not infrastructure spending, not the level of vacancy rates or what's happening with rents, not the level of buyer activity in the area, not demographic trends like Sydney residents leaving the city in droves and moving to the regions. It's all just about interest rates. Now, PropTrack, who tend to be a little bit more enlightened in their analysis than Cotality or Domain, commented recently that investor activity is elevated, but it started its rise well before interest rates started to drop. I'll also point out that markets that are now notably rising, like Darwin, Melbourne, Hobart and regional Victoria, all began their recovery with sales activity before the first of the interest rate cuts by the Reserve Bank. There are so many factors in play which dictate which locations are rising, which ones are stagnating and which ones are falling. There are multiple different scenarios in play across Australia and it's got very little to do with interest rates.